We understand that the discrimination and the oppressions against the minority, against the people of color, has happened since long ago. And it's the bad history for the people of color. We understand that this is how the ethnic enclave actually formed because they believe that the minority believe that they share the same identity. Therefore, it's easier for them to maintain their life, to maintain their job. It's easier for them to pursue the educations in that ethnic enclave, right? Therefore, our stance in today's debate is that we want the ethnic enclave to still be there, and therefore we believe that the parents of these people of color should raise their children in the ethnic enclave. Firstly, I'm going to talk about why it's better for the children. But secondly, I'm going to talk about how is the impact of the future. Will it increase discriminations or not? Now, firstly, proceeding to my first point of the sentence, I'm going to talk about why it's better for the children. Now, we understand the characteristics of the children, right? That are first, less experience. Second, they have no idea why they are actually being discriminated. They have no idea that their culture, that their identity is actually being the minority in the society. They have no idea about what is majority, what is minority, and so on and so forth, right? Therefore, comparatively to the parents of these people of color do actually have to understand and experience a lot of oppressions and discriminations in a very tough world, right? They have understand it's easier for them to calculate and understand that they are actually the minority in the country. Therefore, we think that the idea to live in the same place, which is the ethnic enclave, it's better for the children in order for them to understand in the future that they're actually the minority group in that society. We think that when the children are going to be raised in the homogeneous culture, which is in the ethnic enclave itself, which means that the children are going to be exposed by that certain culture only, that are going to be exposed by only the people from coming from the community, which means that there is not going to be any discriminated actions towards the children at all, right? They will not accept any discriminative actions because they live in the same culture, same people. Therefore, we think that this is the better environment for the children to actually accept the value and understand their positions as the minority in the world. Why, comparatively to the opposition side of the house, opposition's world is going to teach the children directly in the discriminative world. They're going to send their children in a school which is very discriminative towards them. The major students are going to discriminate them anyway. Therefore, the impact is that it creates a psychological harm towards the children. Therefore, the children will be harder to understand about why they're actually being discriminated and why people are actually being very rude to them, right? Therefore, we think that the children are less likely to understand because their psychology have been harmed since the very first place. Therefore, comparatively to our world, in the future later, the children are going to grow and grow with understanding that they're actually the minority. Therefore, if they get the discrimination from the people, it's easier for them to understand that actually the discrimination happens not because my fault, right? Not because the identity, but it's because it's structurally constructed in the society. Therefore, it's better for us to teach the children, and raising the children in the enclave would create the better understanding for them in the future. Secondly, I'm going to talk about why the segregation of this ethnic enclave will still have the good impact in the future. Now, firstly, we still have to understand that discriminations will happen in both sides of the house. In opposition world, even if when they don't live in this ethnic enclave, we think the discriminations will still happen also in their world, but even in the worst situation, right? Why it's worse than in their world? Because the children do not even have access to school, for example. The children and the people itself is unable to express their cultural belief. They don't have place at all to express and to actually show the pride of them having the identity. Comparatively to our side, when there is a segregation, there is this ethnic enclave exists in the status quo, means that it's true, there's still a huge gap between the minority and the majority group. But why it's still better in the sort of house? First, we think that the minority still can express their cultural belief, for example, their music, their language, etc. etc. Therefore, the minorities will have the place to actually freely expressing what are their thoughts towards the majority, what are their feelings towards the oppression that is being given to them, that they still can express their culture and so on and so forth, right? Second, we think that at least they still have the place, they still have the home to be back when it's been a long day for them to be discriminated by the society, right? Therefore, we think that this is actually at least giving the safe place for for these people of color to actually stay in a certain place, right? Because in comparatively to their world, means that they are not giving place at all towards these minority groups, right? Means that they need to live among the majority, among the white people that's always been discriminated to them every day and every time. Therefore, we think that the minority are being live in a very uncomfortable situation. In the side of the world, also minority are forced to adapt in the society, right? Which we think that this is very bad for us to actually force the minority who are getting the discriminations, who are getting the oppressions, are forced to adapt in the society, which means that uh, the cause of these all these discriminations and structural oppressions is caused by this minority. Well, we think that it's not the fault of the minority why this discrimination happens in the first place, right? Therefore, it's not the obligation of this minority, and we should not put the burden on them in order for them to actually engage with the majority, right? But instead, the government and the people should have the understanding why they should not discriminate these minorities in the very first place. Therefore, within it, at least in our side of the house, we provide the place for this minority to actually express their thoughts, express their feeling, express their culture. Therefore, we think that it's better in our side of the house. Now, the second speaker.
Our stand is that we want that ethnic enclave still exist, even at the end of the day, it will still be existed. Why we say so? Because first, we believe that ethnic enclave needs to still exist in order to protect the identity for future sustainability. Why do we think? Why do we think so? Because first, we think that ethnic enclave promotes the identity and the pride of certain group. Why? Because if the children still maintain their identity, it will create the pride towards their toward their cultural belongings. This will make them keep doing their cultural behavior and continuously practicing it in the community and express it freely because they are in the same community who is together sustain this behavior. Number two, why we think that ethnic enclave needs to still exist, because we think that it will create the cohesion towards their internal community. Why? Because we think that the moment when one another who have who live in the same community maintaining the same behavior, it will create the social cohesion towards their community because they will engage to each other in order to sustain their culture and keep the cultural behavior keep existed. Therefore, the communal feeling towards those kind of people will emerge because this communal interaction will strengthen their bond, and when they are expressing or celebrating their cultural celebration day, therefore it will ingrain the feeling to maintain their culture for a long-term sustainability. Even if in opposition world they try to say that by keeping the ethnic enclave still exist, it will only promote the interest to certain culture, or even in the worst case, promoting discrimination. But we don't think so. Why? Because we think that we are not only concentrated and exposed to one particular culture, because we say that it's not going to be bad, but benefit the certain minority. Like, because we think that the moment when the children engage to the majority, it will make them hard to express their cultural behavior. Why? Because it will lead them to the discrimination, because the moment when they engage to the majority and the majority see their cultural behavior that they keep still doing, the majority will say that, oh, it's not okay for you to do this because it's our community and you are not allowed to do that. This will create the discrimination, and they will have no platform to express their identity. It will degrade their sense of pride of belonging to their original identity, ladies and gentlemen. Number two, why we agree that ethnic enclave still needs to exist, because why at the end of the day, the children who raised in the ethnic enclave is also have the likelihood to engage to the society, because we think that the reason their parents raised them in ethnic enclave is to protect them from being discriminated, like what their parents already experienced in the previous years. We think that the reason why their parents raised them in the ethnic enclave is because they are intentionally also educate, because they don't want them to feel the discriminated actions, but they also their parents as their children growing major, they will intentionally also educate them about tolerance and how the survival and how they will able to survive to the world with they live, because as they grow up they will find their way to engage to the society. Therefore, by living in the ethnic enclave itself doesn't necessarily mean that you are only concentrated to one or certain cultural behavior. But we think that the reason why their parents stress them is because first to keep the identity, but number two, they will not necessarily only focus on it, because the parents should also find a way to teach their children about the tolerance, because they think that the world where they live is not necessarily belong to them, because it's the world where they came over to the country and they live, they sustain, they fulfill their subsistence in that. Therefore, they still need to tolerance with the majority at the end of the day. But it's not about engaging to the society since the very first age, but because at the end of the day they will engage when they grow mature. Therefore, we think that the parents will intentionally also teach about the tolerance and how to survive in those world, because when they grow mature and they engage and they associate with the majority at the end of the day, such as for finding job or to pursuing higher school degree or even to find more friendship bond, the minority will feel accepted because they think that they already maintain their because they already ingrained with their fundamental basis. Therefore, they think that showing their behavior is not really bad at all. Maintaining their cultural behavior is not bad at all, even if when they already engage to the society. Even if in the worst case the discrimination still can happen, like for example in the job field. Therefore, this minority, these certain people who have been educated, who have been ingrained with fundamental basis to protect their identity, will still not think that it's very bad at all, because even if the discrimination still happen, they will already have the strong fundamental basis. They will not necessarily think that their cultural behaviors, but therefore they will, because with the tolerance values that have been taught by their children, they will also tolerate to the majority interest itself, but keep maintain their fundamental basis because they already educate to how to maintain their identity. Therefore, at the end of the day, why we think that ethnic enclave still need to exist, because it will make they still feel comfortable in living their interest and will grow, and they will grow better because they already ingrained the values of identity, pride. And for that reason, we're very proud to propose. Thank you.